The most important lessons that I ever learned in life came from the bar. Now, I know a lot of you are raising your hands like me too on the inside, right? But that's a different movement. So let me give you a little bit more detail about what I'm talking about. After organizing the largest march in the history of the United States, the largest march for women's lives, and after working for the National Organization for Women, the largest women's organization in the world, and eventually becoming one of the top female slam poets in the world and being able to tour the country. And then eventually after that, I became an attorney. And I was able to fight during a very, very controversial time, the Black Lives Matter movement. The most frequent question that most people ask me when they invite me to come speak is, where did you learn your most important lessons about leadership and diversity? So I don't mind giving you guys a little bit of truth today. Is that okay? Is that all right? All right. I'm going to give you a little bit of truth. The most important lessons that I learned didn't come from the attorney bar. It didn't come from drinking at the bar like a lot of students think. It didn't come from being the entrepreneur of the year or working for the National Organization for Women. The most important lessons that I learned about leadership and diversity came from this bar, the strip club. It's okay. Let me tell you a little bit about this, right? Before I can explain to you how the strip club was my best teacher, let me help you to understand why everything that you've ever learned about leadership and diversity was a lie. Now, it's okay because I learned the same things too. I learned go to school, be the best. Get a job, be the boss. Get the money, get the power, be successful, and maybe, just maybe one day, you will be able to be in control. Maybe one day you'll be on top and you'll be able to determine your own future. And this is especially important in communities of color. I like to call it something called PTSD. Not post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic slave disorder. It's also called PTSS. Dr. DeGruy actually came up with the term. Now, what PTSD indicates is that in order to be able to keep oppressed communities oppressed, you have to redefine their idea of what leadership is. How many people have heard of the Willie Lynch letters or Willie Lynch? Nobody? That's okay. That's okay, right? Because actually the Willie Lynch letters were considered to be forged, right? We originally thought that they were written in the 1700s, and we found out later on that they were actually written in the 1900s. But regardless of whether they were written in the 1700s or 200 years later, they talked about something that was very real. They talked about the making of a slave, the secret to keeping oppressed communities oppressed. Now, when you think of the name Willie Lynch, it implies that the secret to keeping oppressed communities oppressed is punishment or lynching, right? In fact, that's what we see in everyday society. We see Black and brown people constantly being lynched and put into the prison industrial complex. The Federal Bureau indicated that in March of 2019 in the United States, just last month, 33% of the population was actually Hispanics. 40% of the population was African Americans. African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, we are the largest prison populations, but we don't reflect that in our communities. And didn't we just start seeing people actually getting lynched in real life by police officers? Didn't we just lose Magdiel Sanchez after he was trying to explain to a police officer that he was deaf and he couldn't hear, and the police officer ended up shooting him? Didn't we just lose Philando Castile while he was taking his daughter home, reaching for his wallet, but the police officer was scared because he was a Black man? So we're constantly seeing lynching today, so we would think, well, maybe this is the control mechanism, right? No, it's not the control mechanism. It's actually the consequence. It's the results. The control mechanism is false leadership and diversity. What PTSD does is it indicates that you divide them by race, color, creed, anything that you can find to be divisive, and you tell some of them, go and be leaders. Go be great. Get that one and only one promotion. Get the money, get the power, get the success, but remember, there can only be one, just one, maybe two, if it's a good day. But what if I didn't come from descendants of slavery? Well, that's the thing about PTSD. PTSD is like that sick social media video that you keep telling people to stop sharing, right? But somehow it becomes viral overnight. It gets passed on from generation to generation. It gets passed on from neighborhood to neighborhood, community to community, until the original source of oppression is gone. But the results have multiplied exponentially, and we have no idea where it came from. Like, I don't know where that R. Kelly video came from and how it got in my inbox, right? We no longer have to tell people to be hateful, and to discriminate. All we have to do is tell them to be leaders and be successful. You know, my president, he doesn't see color, he just sees success. You know, I told you guys earlier that I was a sex worker and that I was a stripper when I was a teenager. And coming from the sex worker community, we were already the outcast of society, so we didn't fit into society's protocol of what was success. But that gave us a very unique superpower, right? It gave us the superpower to define our own success. Now, some of us was there by choice, some of us was there by force, but one thing that we did know is that some of us wouldn't actually leave there alive. Police officers, they beat us, they disrespected us, they exploited us. When we were raped, it was our fault. When we were raped and we didn't tell them and we defended ourselves, we ended up being put in prison for life, which is why it's so important to remember names like Cyntoia Brown, 16-year-old sex worker who ended up killing her abuser before he killed her, but she was still put in prison for life at the age of 16. For people like myself and Cyntoia Brown, our definition of success was just making sure that as many of us made it out alive. But the sex work industry wasn't all that bad, let me tell you. Now, unlike what the media and the TV tries to tell you, lust does not discriminate. No matter where you are or what you look like, there is somebody that has a unique preference for you. So no matter where you go, we had girls that were short, that were tall, that were big, that were small, that were all racial diversities, that spoke Spanish, that spoke English, that spoke French, that spoke Russian, that spoke bullcrap. And we still called them all the same thing. We called them sisters. If you want to be a leadership in diversity, then you need to build a family model. One thing that I really love about the Spanish community is that they have become the global example of what leadership should look like. My sister-in-law, she's Puerto Rican, but she speaks less Spanish than my 8-year-old son, right? My first child's father, he was Mexican, and he would refuse to speak English anytime we went into the grocery store. He had a sister that was Dominican, and regardless of the fact, even though everybody was from different backgrounds, they were all still considered family. They called me familia de corazón, family by heart. And what that meant is that no matter where you came from, no matter what you looked like, as long as you had the same heart, you were family. If you want to build a leadership model, then you have to build it on family. Native Americans had similar traditions. They actually welcomed people into their tribe if they had a native heart. African Americans, we do very similar things. I'm telling you, my father adopted so many sisters and brothers in our family that I literally still don't know who is my biological aunt and auntie today, right? But it didn't matter, because whether they were aunt or auntie or tío or tía or padrino or madrina or play cousin, what it told us is that in our DNA, leadership comes from inside. It doesn't come from the top. Now, I told you guys that I used to be a dancer, but that wasn't completely true, right? Now, have you ever seen a dancer, stripper, that couldn't dance? That was me, right? So when Cardi B said, I don't dance now, I make money moves, yeah, I used that excuse first. So people would be like, hey, yo, ma, you coming on stage? You getting on stage? Can I get a dance? And I'd be like, nah, you can't afford me. But I still made money. I'm going to tell you how, right? So there was this beautiful, gorgeous, curvy stripper that had been there for a long time. Her name was Delicious. And for some reason, they would always put us on the stage back to back together, right? But me, knowing that I was rhythmically challenged, I was like, okay, I got to come up with a plan, right? So my logic was that if I go on first before they see anybody else, then they won't have nobody to compare it to, right? And because it's early in the night, they still think they're going to get kicked out if they don't give money. So it's a win-win for me, right? So I'm about to go on stage first, and Delicious jumps in front of me. So I'm like, okay, I can't make her let me go first, so I'm just going to go over here to the VIP where nobody can see that I can't dance, right? So the next day, I come back, and I'm about to go first again, and she jumps in front of me again. I'm like, whoa! And I'm about to go behind her, but then everybody left when she left, so I just had to go to the VIP again. I'm like, I'll dance close enough so that he can't tell that I can't dance. I'll be okay, So the next day, I go back. I say, you know what? They trying to punk me. I am not going to let her take my spot. Today, I'm going to go up there, and if she try to go first, I'm going to tell her that it's a problem. So I go up there, and I'm about to go first. And she jumps in front of me again. But this time, she sees my face. And when she sees my face, she's like, yo, you trying to go first? And I'm like, no. I mean, yes. And I'm breathing, and I'm breathing, and I'm looking at her, and I'm realizing I need to take off my earrings, probably my shoes, put on a little Vaseline, but it didn't go down. What she said was that, sis, I know you're trying to get your paper, but I'm not trying to go behind somebody that's really trying to dance on stage. I mean, you're going to make your money anyway. You've been doing VIPs all week. And I'm like, wait. You can't dance either? I can't dance. Whoa! So that was our sisterhood, right? So she said, you know what, let me tell you some tricks, right? When you can't dance, all you got to do is do like 3 or 4 tricks that last the whole song, and then you walk real cute in between. This is when you zoom in on the shoes, right? And that's your whole set. Let me tell you, this tip was golden. I have never made less than $300 a night after that. And I would show you guys some things, but then I have to charge you for this TED Talk. Leadership is about vulnerability. We think that as leaders, we have to go in and be hard, and we have to be perfect, and we have to know everything. But in reality, leaders let you know their strengths and their weaknesses. They let you know their rises and their falls. When you go in there trying to be like Christ, and then they realize that you're just a man or a woman, that's when they start to nail you to the cross. But if you let them know where you came from before you rose to your dissension, then you're going to let somebody else know that they can make it too. Now back to me and Delicious, right? So I told you that Delicious taught me some tricks out there. Now, one of the best tricks when you don't know how to dance is distraction, right? And the biggest form of distraction is having 2 beautiful women on stage at the same time. So this was our opportunity. So we're both on stage, and here we go, right? Now, she's been doing this for a while, so she is an expert of the pole, right? Me, not so much. So she starts climbing on the pole, right? And she looks back and like, come on. And I'm like, woman, I have not learned how to hold my weight on this pole yet. And I'm afraid that this right here is about to happen, right? But let me tell you. So we was already on stage, something had to happen. So I get up there, and I use my first foot to push myself up a little bit, right? And then I use my second foot to push myself up the rest of the way, right? And I realized that I'm like halfway on the pole, so I'm excited, like, hey, oh, I'm halfway on the pole, right? I'm excited. And then I look up, and I realize I don't know how to get the rest of the way up the pole without having the floor to boost myself up. But it gets worse, right? Because I'm sweaty now, so I slowly start sliding down. And now I'm super bad. I'm super bad. I should have never listened to this woman. She did this on purpose. I hate her. That's just the PTSD talking, y'all. That's not how I am in real life, I promise. But I'm upset, right? So she sees me. She sees me struggling. She's still holding on to the pole. And she reaches back and pulls me up to her. Now, not only did she do that, but then she does this clap and slides down the pole real fast and lands in a split, bam! And then she holds her arms up as I'm sliding down the pole slowly as if it was all done on purpose. I'm like, wow, this chick is good. That night right there, we made at least $1,000. Leaders are willing to lift while they climb. Lift while they climb. Leadership is not about getting to the top by yourself. It doesn't matter if you're first, if there's no number 2 or number 3 or number 999. Leaders will make sure that they get there together. It's not looking your nose down and everybody else saying, hey, I got here by myself, so you should too. Leadership is lifting while you climb. These are the same principles that took me from the pole to the poet, from the poet to the activist, from the activist to the courtroom, from the courtroom to the boardroom as an international business architect. When Delicious lifted me up, she lifted me up so that I could lift up other women, other LGBT, other people of color when I was organizing the March for Women's Lives. When she lifted me up so that I could serve my bankruptcy clients as an attorney or my clients that were going through the criminal industrial complex. When she lifted me up so that I could help my business clients when I started my international business architect firm. If it wasn't for Delicious lifting me up, then there would be a lot of leaders that wouldn't be here today. Now, if you're lucky enough to live long enough, you'll meet at least 80,000 people in your life. More if you're a stripper. But if you want to be a leader in diversity, just make sure that you lift while you climb. Every day, make sure you reach out and lift somebody up that doesn't look like you. And let them know it's okay to define your own success. Let them know it's okay to develop a family model. Let them know it's okay to be vulnerable and authentic. And remind them every day you're to lift while you climb. Thank you.